Welcome to the pre-party. My name is Andrea Swenson. I am an author and radio host in Minneapolis. I work at 89.3 The Current, and I am so excited to introduce to all of you a man who needs a little introduction, especially if you're a Prince fan, the drummer of the Revolution, Bobby Z. Hello, Bobby.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So before we get into anything Prince-related, Revolution-related, can you just tell us, how are you doing? This is such a surreal and intense moment that we're all going through together.
It feels like a science fiction movie a little bit, doesn't it? It's just the virus and all the uncertainty, but there's a lot of good in people, and there's a lot of amazing things being done. And look at this whole internet revolution. People are, pardon the pun, people are trying to do so many innovative things like we're doing now to get people through this. And so music is a good medicine, as Prince would say.
I love that quote. Well, you're clearly coming to us from your home. What can you tell us about what you've been up to lately and where you are right now?
Well, here in Minnesota, as we know, the weather gets nice and you find yourself just doing a lot of stuff outside. And that's really fun. Catching up on digging through old boxes and finding tons of tapes and articles. I kind of just, in the whirlwind of this whole thing from the 70s all the way to today, it's been kind of a collection of odds and ends. But cassettes were thrown around like nothing back in the day, and I've been finally got a machine to transfer some of these tapes, and what I'm finding historically is pretty astronomical and mind-blowing. What George Harrison said, a day in the Beatles was like.
Bobby, we've lost your audio, just so you know. I think you've gotten muted. We'll see if we can get Bobby Z unmuted, everybody.
Okay.
Go. I heard a day in the life of the Beatles was like, and then we lost you.
Right. A day in the Beatles was like a day in the Beatles was like a week, is what George Harrison said, and I can relate to that. It's a day with Prince was like a month. So there's a lot to dig through, and it's an amazing history.
I can't even imagine. Well, we're going to get into some of that history in this Q&A tonight, and we've been getting a lot of questions from fans. I just printed off 3 pages of questions, so we'll see how many we can get to in our conversation. But I do want to hit a couple of notes before we get into all of that. A couple cool things to highlight about tonight. So first of all, you've probably noticed there's a donate button here on YouTube that Prince and the Revolution Live is running in support of the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund for the World Health Organization, which is powered by the UN Foundation and Swiss Philanthropy Foundation. And the really cool thing about right now is that any donations will include a matching component. Google is going to match $2 for every $1 up to $5 million. So please consider donating via that blue donate button that you see on this page. And another thing to note that's really cool is that the concert that we're about to see starting in just under an hour from now is going to include some updated remastered audio. And I am really curious to hear more about this, Bobby, too. So this has been remastered by longtime Prince mastering engineer Bernie Grundman. So we're going to hear the updated version of Prince and the Revolution Live. What is the significance of Bernie Grundman mastering this audio, Bobby?
Bernie was a real artist and in his own right, and mastered some of the biggest records in the U.S. and throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s. And obviously today his studio is world renowned. So the fact that he took you got to remember, this concert was a satellite broadcast, very innovative by Prince to have a satellite broadcast. and the sound was on the fly. And so um, it was done in a mobile truck and whatever the technology was in the day. But now you got Bertie Grundman putting his ears to it and giving the modern technology of mastering, which is just such a mysterious art form in itself. To have him put, the sheen, it's kind of what the finish would be on a car or furniture. That's kind of, look at it that way. So it's got a new paint job.
I love that. All right. Well, that's exciting. So definitely stay tuned for that. As I said, that's going to start in just under an hour. We're all going to go watch it together. There is a link for that. We'll remind you a bunch of times to hit that link so we can all go watch this concert as it starts at the top of the next hour. So, Bobby, you were talking about, going back to the 70s and your incredible history with Prince. I thought this question from the Blatant Oracle on Twitter was a great one to start with. Bobby Z, everyone who's ever met Prince has a great "I remember when I first met Prince" story. Can you recall the moment you first met Prince? What was it like? When? Where? Thank you for taking our questions.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was at Moon Sound, which obviously that's where the story begins. At least after the bands Prince was in his own high school, after my high school, St. Louis Park, and then Prince finished with Andre in North. And Chris Moon was a very innovative guy. Now you got to remember the technology of the day. Like Sound 80 was where Prince did the proper demo to go to Warner Brothers, and A&M and Columbia where Owen shot the tape. The studios back then were official. Sound 80 was like a real, professional studio, and whereas Chris was using the newly innovative home studio. It was like a 1-inch, 8-track, I'm guessing. That was kind of what it was at the day. And so you built a studio around this kind of new professional home audio, which could be mixed, carpeting and different wood, whatever you could do. So it was kind of like that. It was just kind of a funky place, where, carpeted room. It was blue carpet, and I think on the walls and the floors, and the control room was kind of just, different species of wood, and stuff like that. And Chris also, had a photo studio, and he was a jack of all trades. Plus the English accent, which was very charming. And he was really innovative that he said, you can record here if you use my lyrics. And he was starting to do all kinds to get real musicians off the street in recording, which you didn't have access to because it was so expensive at Sound 80 and places like that. And so I was made a deal with him to help with the band I was rehearsing in the back, that we would help paint it if we could rehearse for free. And it was one of those days where it was, paint, music, mess, noise. And I was just walking down the hall, on the way out. And the door was unusually flung open in the main room, Studio A. And the door was against the wall. And he was just sitting in there. And I heard this sound different in nature, like when you see trigonometry or calculus on a chalkboard or something. You just kind of look at it and go, well, that's a math problem for somebody else. These vocals were intense. It was "Baby" was what I was hearing, the song on the first time, with these big vocals. And I just kind of barged in on them, and did, I was just kind of very comfortable at Moon Sound. So it was just like, wow, that's cool. What's going on? And he looked at me like I was Dracula. And the fear on his face, and I was just like, I didn't even do anything. I just basically said hello. And, and he wasn't Prince. I didn't know he was Prince. I didn't know who this person was. And nobody else in the world really did either. And
I just went, "Is that you? Was that all you? Let me hear that." And then I didn't even get a head turn. I just got that, that look with that side eye thing. And then I just kind of won him over with a few jokes, and he played me the track, and that was it. I mean, I was just like, "Wow, that's you." And then he, of course, when it was over, instead of say, I go, "That's really amazing," he was just, "Can you punch in?" It's like, "Sure, punch me in." And he goes out to the drum booth, and he goes, "Okay," and I hit record. And he starts doing a drum track, and then he comes in and he starts doing a bass track. Then he comes in and starts doing a guitar track. By this time, Chris Moon walks in and goes, "Oh, you've met Prince." And I'm just sitting there going, "What did I just see?" This guy's like doing this. Then he does the one thing that freaked me out, plays keyboard and guitar like that. And then he starts singing the same run. And I was just like, okay, this is like voodoo or something. I'm like, this guy is it. But like everybody, you got a beginning, you got to start finding out who you are. And nobody figured it all out faster than Prince. And I'm just grateful that he took me from our, let's just say, humble beginnings at Moonsound to a trip around Jupiter. So that's my meeting Prince story.
Wow. It's so incredible to think, like you were saying, about that journey from, what would this have been, 1975, 76?
Yeah.
To get 1985 live at Syracuse. I mean, that is such a journey. We don't have time to get into all of it in this hour. I know you have so many incredible stories, but tell us about, arriving at that moment when you were seeing the Revolution crystallizing as a band, and what did that mean for Prince's career?
Well, the Revolution was like a puzzle, to get to, a goal that started at Loring Park, basically, in Owen's office with the jams until 6 a.m. It was me and Prince and Andre. And then the search went on for quite a while. And I saw Dez in a band called Revolver, and I just thought he's the coolest looking guy in the world, and he fits this thing perfectly. And I just tried to get those two in a room. They did their own thing for many years after that, but I was happy to bring Dez in the room. I thought the greatest front line, what beautiful front line with those guys. It was just absolutely intense. Andre found Gail. And then, Matt was somebody I knew, kind of like the Wendy and Lisa story, very similar. Our parents knew each other in childhood and that. And then, of course, Lisa, came in and added so much color, to everything, in life and in music. And then Wendy, which completed the puzzle to make what we now know as the Revolution in the film and in this concert you're about to watch, which was just, if you think about that, from Moonsound to what I'm talking about, it's literally like, going to the moon from a bottle rocket. It really is a completely different world. But only Prince could have done that in a relatively short period of time and get a band, the way he wanted it. And there's a couple minutes in this Syracuse simulcast that are just molten lava, where it's like he reaches a point where he's in control of the band, the audience, and himself, and he's spinning this thing as possessed. When it gets to that part, it's like an out of body experience to see it, and obviously doing it was more of a military mentality. I mean, it was kind of like we're the Purple Marines, is what I call the Revolution.
I love that. Well, we've just got an update. We have over 6,000 people joining us so far at this pre-party. Wow. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in from really around the world. I know we're hitting people at different times of day, but this is just so exciting to be here with everybody and really to be able to come together and experience something like this. I know I've been missing live concert experiences, and it's just so special that we can be here tonight. So for those of us just joining us, this is the official pre-party. We are going to direct you to a separate link for the actual broadcast of the concert starting at 7 p.m. Central Time. We judge everything from Central Time here in Minneapolis because that is ground zero of the Prince universe. And I do want to remind you as well that there is a donate button that you can hit. This live stream is running in support of the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund for the World Health Organization. So thanks so much for supporting that. I also just got word right before we started this that there's some new merch being rolled out over at Prince.com. And there are some new face coverings being offered, and the Prince Estate is going to be donating one to communities in need for everyone that is purchased. And that link is also right below here in the description of the video. Well, I want to get to some more comments from all of these fans that are so excited to talk to you, Bobby. Since this video is from the Purple Rain tour, here's a couple questions about the tour. So Micah Mann asked, who came up with the set list for the Purple Rain tour? Was it Prince alone, or did the Revolution have a say in it?
Well, rehearsals were long and intense, and you learned a tremendous amount of songs. I mean, there was the set, then there was another set, then there was probably doing time songs or, before time songs, so there was layers of music. So you never really knew until you got to dress rehearsals when you had to commit. So there was always kind of a revolving set list. But, Prince was real. I mean, he was amazing at making set lists. And he knew he wanted a piano break in the middle, and there was a format that after 1999, and he'd worked Roy Bennett and Prince were working hand in hand, and it was all about a show at that point. So the set list became kind of the movie driven, plus Prince's ideas, plus Roy's ideas, plus the band's input, and whatever worked. But it was a period of time that the movie kind of dictated in this particular tour, obviously, that it was a huge part of that. So it really, Prince and Roy, really collaborating on what scenes. It was kind of theatrical scenes on the tour that had to be, really involved. I mean, elevators and, a tremendous amount of under the stage stuff going on that was just remarkable. I think there was 105 people on the Purple Rain tour, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, tell us more about Roy Bennett. What was his role?
Roy Bennett started it in Dirty Mind, and I'm not exactly sure what band he came from, but he was young, and he was brilliant, and he had to go through the initial shock of working with Prince, which is kind of like, unpredictable, and you don't really know, creatively which road to take, if you're right or wrong. And if you're right, you're a hero, and if you're wrong, it's, try again. But Roy quickly became a partner in crime that they created a live event driven show. I mean, the lighting, he was a lighting expert, but more importantly, his set and stage designs were, we know now he went on to do McCartney and Lady Gaga. I mean, everybody that's anybody, wanted Roy Bennett over the last, 30, 40 years. But at that time he was young and scrappy like us. And the whole thing was pioneering. And he's one of the greatest rock and roll pioneers of all is Roy Bennett. I'll never forget, they were doing a Nine Inch Nails dress rehearsal here in St. Paul. And I went over there and just watched them kind of empty arena, kind of going through the paces of this show. And the lights were just, completely locked to the music. That's the thing about Roy, is he knows how to count, he knows music. So that the pulsations are in rhythm, because musically, he's a huge music fan too, which, so he was such a huge part of it. And he just helped us on the CBS special recently too. He was our de facto manager, guardian angel, we just love him, and so he's a key part of what you're going to see later tonight. Just when you see this, we call him the sixth member of the band, because when you see it, it's Roy.
That's awesome. Here's a question from Rel 916 on Twitter, and Rel says, "I'm an '85 baby and grew up listening to Prince and the Revolution. I was always awestruck by the outfits that you wore on stage during the Purple Rain film and tour. What was your first thought when you put on those outfits?"
Heavy. They were heavy. Some of them were, the sweat factor. Lewis and Vaughn designed the clothes with Prince, and they ended up on the road, and they were making stuff on the fly, and they were ultimately, geniuses in their own right. Prince's sketch designs would be transferred into costumes the next day, and so we would say stuff that doesn't fit. We need this here, we need this fixed, and they would adapt the costume. So you got playable stuff. One of my favorite costumes is the American Music Awards, which is a very thin, silky, black and purple striped suit. Of course, the original rainbow suit. And Wendy had some great jackets and suits to match Prince, and Lisa had capes. Mark was shirtless and bass in your face, just being super bad. And Prince, of course, with those costume changes. The white on Baby I'm a Star is always striking. So the costumes were, designed to work, but you were sweating.
Can't even imagine. Well, I'm sorry I didn't put on my cape tonight for this. Okay, here is a question from someone that is very into drum nerdery, and I'm sure you're going to love this one. From Bart Lockhorst, he says, "Prince is known for his use of drum machines, especially the Linn LM1. How did you create this sound on stage? Did you have the machine, or did you drum live along to it, or was it only your real drums?"
All of the above. It was a pioneering effort. The Linn was a new machine, and Prince took to he was the master of the Linn, but he also wanted to push boundaries, and he wanted it playable. So there was no way to play it at that time. And so Don Batts, who was our very creative tech at that point, created an interface. The Linn had a genius factor that you could take the outs in the back, and they built a interface that would trigger with acoustic guitar microphones. Was all they had at that time, little mics, and they could put on a drum, and then they would create this trigger. Simmons came along quickly, but the original I Want a Playable drum set that Prince envisioned was ahead of its time, and so they had to make it. It was like, I'm sure the early Model Ts, did they, get the horse, forget the car. I mean, it was very difficult to manage. And then, we had started so live and the drums and stuff, and now I was faced with the task that, kind of being a muse and a pioneer and trying to get everything to work and travel with it. And, it was, but Prince was pushing the boundaries on keyboards and drums and guitars and pedals, and it was always about taking music and tech to the next level.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Ash asks, what was the band's favorite snack?
The band's favorite snack? Well, we're a veggie tray kind of group. I think we're not, but deli trays are deli trays. I mean, Dr. Fink loves a good deli tray sandwich. Any given day, that's a hearty meal. So it's a lot of fun to just at the end of the night, you just rummage through those things and just take back to your room what you want. Fruit. We're a pretty innocent bunch when it comes to not a lot of M&Ms or stuff like that. Pretty basic stuff.
Fergal is joining us tonight from Ireland, and he wants to know, was Prince ever nervous before shows? He always looks so relaxed and professional.
Yeah, excited, I think, is a better word. But at the same time, the level that started really in the 70s, the difference between Andre and Prince when I came from my bands and the Williams pubs and the, Uptown actually, was kind of an alternative or country rock world,
Uptown.
and that they had a just different attitude towards the stage. It was like life and death. It wasn't just like going up there to play. It was like literally what happened on the stage was your life, and that intensity pushed him, to push him and the band, to a level. And so when you're under that kind of level, he definitely would kind of like, get into a zone that was not only, nervous energy, I would call it, but I mean, the intensity before a show was thick. And after a good show, it was just like a release, like you just won the Super Bowl. So it was that kind of highs and lows before and after the show that made these events, like every day playing, whether it was rehearsal or anything, was kind of like life and death, serious playing. It wasn't just kind of messing around. Everything was serious. Music was very serious.
Yeah. We've just gotten a note that we have to take a quick break. There is something going on the back end. They're going to restart the feed, so we will be right back.